Hi, I'm Joe, and this is the Decahedron RPG Podcast. Hey everyone, no James this week. James is out taking care of some family stuff from what I understand. So this is a Jolo episode. We talked about it a few times. I keep saying I'm going to do an episode about that. I don't know if you've ever heard that, because James and I usually record long and then I trim out a whole bunch of stuff to bring the length down. So I don't know if you've heard me talk about Paladins and how difficult it is to roll one, but that's what we are talking about this week. So in the AD&D Player's Handbook, it says, this class of character bears a certain semblance to religious orders of knighthood in medieval times. What character class is that? Did you say Paladin? If you did, you're wrong. That's actually what it says about clerics. And that is why I have always said I don't understand the purpose of the Paladin class. If you need a holy warrior class, it's right there. It's the cleric. But that's a whole other conversation. I think we talked about that at some. Oh, yeah. There was another point where someone asked me, James had asked me, what my least favorite character class was. And I said Paladin for that reason. One of the reasons that doesn't really worry me is that it's really impossible to roll up a Paladin. How impossible? Let's go through some numbers. And that's why this worked as a me episode and not a me and James episode, because this episode's all about math and James doesn't do math. So originally, let's go way back in time, in the Wayback Machine. Go all the way back to 1974, the original D&D rules came out. There's no Paladin to be found. Paladin doesn't show up until a year later when Gygax publishes Supplement 1, Greyhawk. In that book, a Paladin needed a 17 or better in charisma. Now, in old D&D, the character generation rules were pretty simple. They were 3d6 in order. That makes the math really easy. That means that only 1.85% of the characters that you would roll up would qualify to be a Paladin. That's about 1 in 54. So if you wanted to roll a Paladin, you need to be either lucky or roll like 54 times. But time moved on and D&D gave way to AD&D. At least that was Gygax's hope. At the time, I felt I need to play advanced D&D because it was advanced and I was a kid and that meant something. AD&D, in hindsight, was a lot of what I didn't like about D&D, air quotes, and made me move on to other games. Had I stuck with original D&D, I'm not sure that would have been as necessary, because when I look at the games in retrospective, original Dungeons & Dragons I like a lot better than Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. Advanced Dungeons & Dragons is that march towards what I call munchkinism. All the numbers are higher. Fighters now roll a D8 instead of a D6 for a hit dice. Monsters get that D8 instead of a D6. Everyone's getting higher hit points. Oh, no, I lied. Fighters are now getting a D10 for hit points. Clerics are getting a D8. Monsters are getting D8s. All the numbers are getting higher. And because all the numbers are getting higher, of course, the requirements to be a Paladin got higher. Not only did they need that charisma score of 17, but now they also needed a wisdom of 13 or better, a strength of 12 or better, and intelligence had to be 9 or better, and so did constitution. So that's a whole lot of numbers. That's going to be hard to roll up. But how hard? I did the math. That's a lie. How hard? I programmed my computer using a system we call the Monte Carlo method. In other words, you tell your computer to roll up, a few million characters, and you see how many of those would have qualified for that class. Using the actual original, roll 3d6 in order, which at the time that the Player's Handbook came out was the only method of rolling characters, the only official method, there was approximately a 0% chance of legitimately rolling up a Paladin. The actual chance is 0.099%, or about 1 in 1,000 characters. So if you wanted to roll a Paladin, you want to do legally, you didn't want to fudge any numbers, you had a 1 in 1,000 chance. Or you had to sit there and roll up like 1,000 characters and get lucky. And then we know that the Dungeon Master's Guide eventually came out 2 years later, 1979 or so. And that gave us 4 more methods. So I ran the math for all 4 methods. In addition, I did the common little house rule that we always played with, and I think a lot of people did, which is roll your 3d6, but roll them 6 times and put them whatever order you want. If you want your highest roll to be your strength, put it there. So I did it that way. So going from, I don't know, which order should I do this in? Should I go from the least likely to the most likely? Yeah, let's do that. So I already did the method 0 that we talked about, which is 3d6 in order. So for that house rule I just talked about, where you roll 3d6, you do it 6 times, and you swap them around any way you want them, your chances are now a lot higher because you're not relying on that high roll to be exactly where you want it to be. So you've gone from 1 in 1,000 to 1 in about 88 characters would qualify to be a paladin, or you had a 1.14% chance of rolling it up. So in the Dungeon Master's Guide, method 4 was to roll 3d6 for each attribute in order, but to do it 12 times and keep the one set of scores that you like the best. In other words, roll up 12 characters, pick the one that you like the best. This is a slightly better than the roll 3d6 6 times and arrange them how you want. So instead of 1 in 88, it's a 1 in 84, or roughly a 1.19% chance. But 1 in 84 characters would qualify to be a paladin. Method 3, which is roll 3d6 6 times and keep the highest. And you do this for each attribute in order. So you don't get to pick and choose, but you're rolling pretty much 6 characters for strength and then 6 characters for intelligence. And for each one of those, you're picking the highest group. Does that not sound like the very definition of a bunch king? Come on. Anyway, if you do that, your chances drop way down or way up. Yeah, they go way up, and you now have a 1 in 12 chance of getting a paladin, or an 8.325%. DMG method number 1, which is roll 4d6 and discard the lowest. Do this 6 times and arranging any order you want. This is the method that eventually became the official method in 3rd edition. This gives you a 1 in 7 shot of playing a paladin, or 13.65% of the time you'll get a character that qualifies to be a paladin. Of course, the other way of looking at it is that like 86% of the time you won't be able to play a paladin, because even in this method, your scores won't be high enough. But anyway, so there's that one. And finally, method 2 was to roll 3d6 12 times, keep the highest 6 rolls, and arrange those in whatever order you want. This is your best chance. Pretty much you have a 1 in 6 chance that you'll be able to play a paladin 16.53% of the time. Or again, even on your best shot, if you really want to sit down and play a paladin, there is an 83% chance that you will not be able to play a paladin. 5 out of 6 characters do not qualify to be a paladin. Which, sure, you could say, well, that makes perfect sense because paladin should be high and lofty, and it should be difficult to be a paladin. Which makes sense in the game world, but it doesn't make for a fun game. When you sit down and you say, I really want to play a paladin. Nope, sorry, you can't. Now, the one thing I didn't mention was Unearthed Arcana. That came out with a new method where every character class, there was this big matrix. Every character class was listed, and for every ability score, they rolled a different number of dice. So a paladin might roll 8d6 for strength, and 4d6 for constitution, and 10d6 for charisma. I'm making these numbers up. I don't know what they are, and I'm too lazy to look them up. And in the end, it says if your score still isn't high enough, just give them the score. Which, again, that's a very Munchkin-y rule, because you're just going to say, and I'm not saying the just give it to them part, although that's a little Munchkin-y. I'm saying, why then are we rolling all these dice to try to get those scores to be that high? If we're just going to say, doesn't matter, we're just going to give you the minimum score anyway, just give them the minimum score. This was just a little exploration into the numbers. It probably works better on paper than it does through the voice. But thanks for sticking with it. Thanks for listening. Until next week, bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Decahedron RPG Cast. We'd love to hear from you. You can leave us a voice message by calling 562-774-2278. That's 562-RPG-CAST. Or by visiting sayhi.chat/Decahedron. You can also email us at feedback@decahedron.com. Links are in the show notes. For more information, visit decahedron.com. Remember that Decahedron is spelled with a K. Music is by Kevin MacLeod. Logos by Design Cat. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep those dice rolling.